Welcome back to BackTracks, the one and only podcast where we go back into the backtracks of successful people's lives and examine exactly what are the missing ingredients that you may be looking for that someone else has found to get them where they want to go. Today, I'm here with the one and only Majeed Mogharreban. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Harrison.
How you doing today, Majeed?
Doing great. Feeling like I'm winning at life, being in your beautiful compound with your extraordinary roommates and your beautiful, fancy, fast cars in the driveway. Happy to be here.
It's absolutely a great time. We love some Wi-Fi money.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know who Majeed Mogharreban is, his name is Majeed like magic, and Majeed is a public speaker. In fact, some would consider him an expert speaker. Majeed is the founder of the Expert Speaker Institute, and he has helped thousands of coaches all over the world perfect their public speaking abilities, land speaking engagements, all the way up onto TED platforms. Majeed, would you care to add anything to that intro?
Well, more recently, I've become fascinated with how words are codes for reality and how the words we tell ourselves really programs our own mind, and the words that we use with other people, consciously choosing the right words, affects how we lead each other and lead ourselves, and affects our realities. So, for example, instead of saying, I have to go at 2:00, because I have a call at 2, I say, I get to go at 2:00 because I get to have this call. And just that one word changes my energy. So studying words and performing words and speaking, I have fallen deeper in love with the power of words.
That's amazing. Majeed, I'm curious, being an expert of linguistics and speaking, what are some things that you notice, some vocabulary or some ways that successful people speak that people may be trapped in a poverty mindset are not using?
Well, one of the forms of wealth is time. You know, to have control of time is a form of wealth. And when you hear people saying, I wish I could, I don't have time, gosh, I'm slammed, it's crazy, they're speaking as though they're not the one in control of their own time. And they may believe that. If they're using words like, I'm making time for what's important, and then they don't say, I don't have time. They say, that's not my top priority. And they're speaking as though they are the ones in control of their time. So successful people value their time, and they are consciously aware how they speak about time being under their own control.
We all have the same 24 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's no more effective way to make me feel like I'm not doing enough than looking at that. It's like, Elon has the same 24 hours as me. I'm curious, what are a few key speaking tricks that you've used to dramatically, obviously the 80-20 Pareto principle. I'm sure there's a few vocabulary shifts or speaking shifts that you've used that have allowed you to project more confidence, project more expertise, control a room more effectively. Are there some small little shifts that you've made that you've seen a dramatic shift with?
Well, just on the word confidence, one of the ways you can convey confidence is with your tone. Now, let me say that same sentence again. One of the ways you can convey confidence is with your tone. Same words, but because I changed the pitch a little bit, it kind of turns it into a question. So one of the ways you can convey confidence is with your tone, right? So we can speak confidently, and this is naturally how we speak when we are confident. And when we notice how our tone changes a little bit, we can become more conscious about speaking with confidence, because confidence is attractive. Leaders are confident. Confident people have some certainty about the future. Nobody really knows about the future, but confident people seem to really have pretty good idea where they're going, and I'm going this way and you guys can follow me, is confidence. Now, I also want to share with you, my favorite use of language is questions. Questions focus our mind towards answers. So instead of saying, I can't afford it, we say, how could I afford it? Or instead of saying, I don't have enough time, how could I make time? What would make this even more exciting? What would make this even better? And questions go right into the brain. The brain just starts looking for answers. So with my children, instead of saying, Ruby, you're such a good girl, I'll say, Ruby, why are you such a good woman or such a good girl? She's 11 years old. Or I'll say, how are you so smart? Or why are you so creative? And these questions kind of assume the premise. And then she goes, well, I'm creative because I'm artistic and I'm a dancer and I love music and I love colors. And so I'm wanting to insert this idea that they are intelligent and creative, and I'm doing that with a question. So we can use a lot of these techniques in sales. These are very powerful things to be used for good and not evil.
That's very, very, very powerful stuff. I would love to explore what you mean by that, of these are powerful tools to be used by good versus evil. Yeah, I'm just curious, like what are some of these tools and how could you see them being played in the wrong hands?
Well, as Spider-Man's uncle told him, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you know that the way you speak, the words you use, the tone you use can really guide people in a direction of your choice, then that can be great leadership, or it could be harmful manipulation.
That's super, super potent stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever, I'm curious because you've worked with so many people, have you ever seen clients of yours or people that you've worked with use the tools that you've given them in a negative or an evil way?
Well, when people are feeling desperate, I work with people around sales and marketing. So sales is the conversation that helps people make a decision, and marketing is the communication and the description that gets people wanting to buy. Mm-hmm. And when people are in a state of desperation, that they feel like they need this money so badly, like they need oxygen or food, then they will do whatever it takes. And this is where salespeople get a bad rap, where, it's pressure and it's convincing and it's, they don't really feel like the salesperson cares about the customer. It's just like when an animal or a human can go without food. The first day they're a little cranky. The second day they get kind of feral. And the third day they'll do some horrible things to eat, right? So if they're feeling so desperate that they need to use the power of language to convince people, and try to trick people into buying, then people come out of this trance and they're disappointed because they go, I didn't really need this. I didn't really want this. I felt pressured, Now, sometimes that's the customer not taking responsibility for their own decisions. But the most caring and loving approach to sales is to start with, I don't need this sale because I have money in the bank, or because I'm going to be just fine. Without the sale, I will be just fine. Then we go, okay, I'm here to powerfully, lovingly help them make a decision. If they want help or not. And if they want help, if they want it from me or from someone else. And that's what the sales conversation becomes. It's guiding them to understand their problem, make a decision if they want help, and then decide if they want help from me today or from someone else.
I'm curious when it comes to the sales language. Obviously, the inflection and tonality of your voice is important, and the quality of the questions is important. Is there certain pacing structure or framing structure that you follow to help someone guide someone through that process? Because it's just a decision-making process.
Yeah. So at the beginning of my career in business, I would have told you that sales is all about making a pitch, describing what you do, features, benefits, explaining why you should buy today, right now. And now where I sit, I would say the most helpful thing you could do as a salesperson is listen. It's not speaking at all. It sounds a lot more like silence. And asking a very few questions. And those questions are basically, what do you want? And why don't you have it? It's a very helpful framework to consider. What do you want? And why don't you have it? So, for example, you're selling a car. Person walks onto the car lot. The car salesman says, not, how you doing today? Or what's it going to take to get you to buy a car today? Or you're looking for speed, or you're looking for comfort. You just say, hey, what do you want? And then if you want to really help them, you say, what do you really want? And they go, oh, what I really want is this. And you just say, well, why don't you have that yet? Then you start to get into the why. Why do they want this, right? Giving people what they want is the definition of sales. In fact, the moment you offer someone exactly what they want, they buy.
That's powerful stuff. That's really powerful stuff. Understanding all you got to do is, I heard this thing from a sales mentor and a good friend of yours. His name is Joe Marcoux. And Joe Marcoux used to teach me, nobody wants to be pushed into a purchase. Right? Everybody loves to buy. Nobody likes being pushed into a purchase.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you're asking questions like this, it's almost like and same thing with your daughter, Ruby, they're creating their own evidence as to why they should make the decision, instead of you trying to say, hey, here's all of the reasons you should buy this. Here's all the benefits that you will have when you buy this. So instead of, here's the 3 best things you'll get when working with me, you just flip the script and you say, what are the benefits you would see in working with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why me? Why now? Why not later?
Yeah.
Why don't we push this off by 6 months? And then they say, no, I need it now because ABC. Okay, why me? There's lots of other people out there that can help you. Why would you want to work with me? Oh, because I like your style, because the results you get, because you understand my situation. Okay.
Are there some common pitfalls or traps that you see people in sales falling into when it comes to the sales process and how they're speaking with or engaging with prospects?
Well, firstly, what comes to mind is the emotional attachment to the sale, which is wanting the sale. And I think there's a balance between wanting the sale in the form of wanting to help people, wanting to deliver your service, wanting to receive payment, but that can cloud your judgment and it could bias you towards thinking that everyone you talk to should buy. But in fact, I personally think it's more helpful to not convince, but just listen. What do you want? Why don't you have it? So attachment to the sale, and then spending more time talking than listening. In fact, for the longest time, I wanted to find a tool that I could plug into my Zoom that could tell me what percentage of the call I was talking versus listening. Because there was an analysis done on a couple of selling from stage, and I loved how it was like, it analyzed how many times did the speaker say you versus I. I think you is a much more powerful marketing word than I. Because I is about me, you is about my prospect, right? And it got me thinking, or I forget when it was where I learned like just spend more time listening than talking. And I thought, I wonder if we did a transcript of my calls, what would it look like? And if we did a transcript of this interview right now, it's me talking like 90%.
Which I would argue is a good thing in this situation.
My voice sounds fantastic to me, but it's costing me a lot of money because I would make more money if I just listened.
When do you think is the right time to demonstrate your expertise or talk? Obviously, on this podcast, you're speaking much more than me. I would argue that you talking more is demonstrating expertise. It's allowing people to see into your world. It's allowing people to understand who you are. So I would argue that now would be the perfect time for you to talk disproportionately more than me.
Sure. We're in an interview now and you're interviewing me. And so I'm wanting to be helpful with my answers. On a sales call, I like to start with, we get on the call. If we're on Zoom, I like to maybe point out, oh, you got some sport paraphernalia on your wall. How's your sport team doing? Where in the world is Harrison today? What time is it over there? Okay, cool. Listen, Harrison, what was the number one reason that compelled you to book your call with me today? That's my first question, right? And then you're basically telling me why you're here. And then I'll ask some form of what do you want? It might be a magic wand question. Like, if you could wave a magic wand and transform your life and your business to exactly what you want it to be, what would that look like? What would it look like is a visual question. So now I have you seeing something. And that's something that you're seeing that's the thing that you want. You don't want me, my coaching, my service. You don't want to pay me. You want that thing. But now I'm going to see if I could be the bridge for you to get that thing. So if you could wave a magic wand, what would it look like? What would you actually want? And the reason why we use a magic wand is because it allows your brain to bypass the impossibilities of it. Maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe it'll never happen. Maybe it takes too long. Maybe it's too expensive. But if we had a magic wand, what would you really want?
So the sales techniques you use are really just communication at a highly advanced level, right? It's just being able to articulate and frame and move through a conversation in a way that allow someone to make an empowered decision.
Yes.
But obviously a sales conversation, whether it's in person or over the phone, is a controlled environment. How do you use these sales techniques and these sales tactics and just everyday social activity when you're at the coffee shop, when you're meeting someone new, when you're at a networking event or with friends and family?
I love meeting people. I love starting conversations. And the coffee shop is a great example, especially the person behind the counter, because they're actually paid to speak with you. The people who are having a coffee, that's a little bit more like you might be interrupting their moment. So I'm in Austin, Texas, so I'm an outsider. So I like to play my tourist card. So, last night we were at this 24-hour coffee shop, and I was like, what's this thing that's wrapped in a corn husk that they fill with tamales. So I go, what's a tamale? And I let them feel helpful. I mean, I also really didn't know what it was. And, when you're meeting people, we try to find what do we have in common? Okay. So if you're meeting someone out in the wild, the one thing we know we have in common is that we're both here. So if I'm in this coffee shop and you're in this coffee shop and you're working here, how long have you been working here? Makes sense. Are you from Austin? Have you been living here? Because we're both here. And then we find something that we're interested, that's a little bit more unique to us. Like, you're a big tamale fan. I've never had a tamale. Now I'm possibly up and coming tamale fan, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the essence of breaking the ice. And I think people want friendly connection, but we're used to disconnection because we all have our little distraction devices that we can scroll through. You're exceptionally good, actually, at connecting with people. I know that from our trips to Morocco and Paris, and you always seem to find something to talk about. Usually it opens with a curiosity. Like, how long has this thing been here? And then, how long have you been here, to what are you doing later tonight? Yeah. I've witnessed that on many occasions.
For those of you who don't know, Majeed lives in Ottawa, Ontario. No, Ottawa, excuse me. It's in...
That's correct. Ottawa, Ontario.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
And the first time Majeed and I traveled together, we actually lived together in a house here in Austin, Texas, and then went to Canada, and then we went to Morocco, and most recently to Paris. So a lot of love and respect. And I could say the same about you, being able to approach just about anybody. It's really beautiful stuff.
I think you and I both share a fascination with other people. Like I think of it like every person has something really interesting to contribute to this moment that we can discover together. And I think you also share that love for connecting with people.
Absolutely. So for people that aren't in sales and marketing, but want to just be better communicators, what would be just like maybe your top 3 pieces of advice for being able to go deeper with your relationships, engage with the people you care about more, and also approach random strangers and actually have a better conversation?
Sure. Well, I think understanding the terms sales and marketing, which are business terms for communication that gets clients or creates transactions, right? Those same skills, when applied to life, are called relationships and leadership. They're both the application of psychology and communication, understanding what gets people to do what they do, and how words impact people's understanding and connection. So the first thing to understand is that people think different and understand words different. So we've got introverts and extroverts. We've got creative thinkers and analytical thinkers. We've got emotional thinkers and we've got logical thinkers. And the default is that we tend to communicate in the way that we want to be communicated with, right? So for example, I can be very direct, especially on text messages. Like, for example, someone will send me a long text message and I'll reply, YES. Yes. I'm proud of my communication. It's clear. It's simple. I have gotten the response on more than one occasion. Are you mad at me? So the principle is not everyone communicates the same. And if you want to create a deeper connection, communicate like they do.
Yeah.
If you don't know how they communicate, start to familiarize yourself with the different ways that people communicate in writing, in speech, in different ways that people think, so you can start to put yourself in their shoes and communicate in a way that's better for them.
Do you think that is inauthentic? Obviously, it's meeting people where they are. Let's say someone's in an emotional state, meeting them in that emotional state and allowing them to communicate with them more emotionally. But do you think that's inauthentic to change the way that you would communicate based on the person and the situation?
I'm sure it can be if people are putting on a show. But everybody changes how they speak. It's called code switching. Sometimes people really change their language and their dialect. Like, just imagine how you would speak at your family dinner with your parents around versus how you speak with the boys versus how you speak with a young lady versus how you would speak with an old woman. You're authentic in every setting and you're different. I'm here in Texas. I feel a little bit like I speak a little bit differently. And when you and I were sitting at the car wash talking to the man in the Ford F-150 with a cowboy hat, you became a lot more farmer-like.
That's very
You
true.
were like, I grew up on a Colorado farm and I know what it's like.
It's true.
And that's cool because you're connecting. I don't think it's inauthentic.
Yeah. I think to your point, it's being able to find that circle of relatability of, oh, this is a common interest or a common experience. Now we can actually communicate about that thing and we can create, it's world building, really. It's like, oh, we can create inside jokes. We can find common pain points or common similarities. I heard this quote from Alex Hermosi, and he said one of the greatest ways to enroll someone in a sale is to be able to communicate their pain more clearly than they can. And that comes from an ability of understanding their world, meeting them where they are. So to your point, I think it can be healthy. What are some ways where code switching and matching your tonality to someone else could be conceived as inauthentic?
Well, what's coming to mind for me is in America, we have a dialect of English called Ebonics, spoken by Black people. I grew up, there's a lot of Black people speaking Ebonics when I was a kid, where I grew up in Carbondale, Illinois. My sister married a Black guy, has lots of Black friends. She's got the Ebonics thing down, and that's how she talks. But she looks like me. You know, if you were on the phone with her, you might think she was a Black woman. Now, however, I will say she speaks like that around her Black friends, but she probably has her like white voice too, right?
The Karen voice.
Now, I think for me to speak with Ebonics with that so much of a change in my voice would be inauthentic for me. Now, my favorite city in America is New Orleans or Louisiana. Or I believe it's pronounced Nowlands.
Yep.
And I become a Southern Black man when I'm in New Orleans, and it's really fun. That's authentic. I'm not like pretending. I'm admiring. I'm assimilating.
Yeah, that's good. I was having a conversation with one of my roommates the other day. We invited a roommate's girlfriend's parents over to the house for a breakfast, like a brunch. Yeah. And he noted, he's like, man, the way you guys are talking is totally different around them than it is just around me. I don't like that. And it was interesting to me, to your point of like code switching of, I've been asking myself this question recently, what would it be like if I communicated the same way with everybody in my life? And I've started to think that I think that would make my intimate relationships maybe a little more lifeless and there'd be less of a spark. Obviously, my parents would still get, and elders in my life would get, a demonstration of respect, but it may be more casual and candid. And I'm looking at it of, I think if I communicated the same with everybody, I would be able to relate on a lower level than when I actually can match tonality and pacing and energy in the conversation.
Think about how you would speak to your girlfriend or your wife compared to your kids, compared to your boss at work. Very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Majeed, you have a reputation in the social circles that we share of being absolutely hilarious and making exceptional jokes. What are some things, and when I say jokes, like you make jokes on the fly, off the cuff. You just find the thing to make fun of or to laugh at or to point at, and it's always hilarious. What are you looking for when you're trying to find a good joke?
Great question. And I'm going to go a little deep and a little esoteric on what is humor. And I'm excited to tell you that I just recently realized that I want to put together a workshop called How to Be Funny. And I'm going to give it in Experience House, Guatemala in January. So I'm percolating. I was just workshopping a little bit of it this morning with Johnny Ranka. So let's start with what is humor and why does it exist and why do we have this like experience of laughter? And the evolutionary reason I was told that I like to believe is that it's a way of signaling intelligence. Because with mating, we're attracted to certain signals that indicate that we're going to make a good mate, that, you know, the woman's going to make a good baby and the man's going to be strong enough to protect him. So that's why we're kind of attracted to mate features, you know. But we're also really attracted to this thing called humor. And that's a signal of intelligence. So if I say something witty and you laugh, we're signaling to each other some level of intelligence, some level of observation of reality that is like, you know, deep.
Yes.
And that's why like women laughing is like flirting. You know, like when a woman laughs at your jokes, she's like saying, hey, game on, buddy.
Yeah.
You know,
it's true.
So that's what is humor, or why do we laugh from an evolutionary perspective? What makes something funny is to see it in a different way, right? And we were talking about roasting today. So roasting is where you humorously poke fun of the other person, right?
Right.
So Harrison, the 90s boy band, 98 Degrees, called and they want their necklace back. Because that was standard issue boy brand jewelry, right? Are you thinking of possibly starting another Backstreet Boys revival band? What are you, headed to New York Fashion Week with your all black fashion attire here? So I actually took a selfie of me, Johnny Ranka, and his new wife, and I went to ChatGPT and I said, roast us. And it was hilarious. So it's like pointing out things that could be misconstrued or that could be seen as humorous. You know, I was wearing running shoes and ChatGPT was like, those shoes look like you haven't seen the inside of a gym in over a year, right? So what makes things funny is seeing things differently. We were talking about how Seinfeld is a master of just seeing things differently. So he was giving this bit on, what is it? Why are we buying this stuff? We're just going to throw it away anyway. You know what I would love to do is just buy stuff and put it directly in the garbage. If you're interested in seeing this bit, you should Google Seinfeld garbage. And he's like, you bring stuff home, you put it on the counter, it's lovely, but one day you put it in the cupboard and it never sees the counter again. And then one day you're cleaning the cupboards and you bring it to the garage and oh boy, it's never coming back into the house. And in fact, it's one step away from garbage. In fact, that's why they call the garage, because it sounds like garbage. And he says, I wish they would just have stores where you can buy something and immediately put it in the garbage and skip all the steps, because ultimately we are humans. Our houses are just garbage processing plants. And so he's just observing life in a way that's more interesting and we're laughing, right?
Right.
Now, you can also do humor that hurts people's feelings.
Yeah.
It's like bullying.
A fine line, right?
It's bullying, right? And, you know, I was joking and poking fun about you a little bit, like this roasting thing. It's one way that guys kind of show their, you know, we're close enough that we can poke fun at each other. We're like brothers. That's just what we do. I lived in Australia for a year and they do that constantly amongst men. It's rough. They bring some like, they really make some jokes at your expense, right? So that I would call that like bullying humor or dark humor. So it's an expression of intelligence. It's a way of showing others how you see things in kind of a different way. Then there's timing. You know, the perfect joke with the wrong moment makes no sense. You got to get that timing right. Yeah. Do
you try to create the right timing or create the right space for a joke? And if so, how so?
So when you're in conversation and someone says something and you have a response that could be funny and you deliver it confidently, you can nail a joke. But if you think about it and you don't deliver it and you wait, those are ones that I'll edit. I'll say, okay, I'm going to hold that one. It's not the right time. It's not the right room. In fact, I was at the I was at the end of an ayahuasca journey just a few nights ago. We were like just finished, so people were like just coming down, and I walk up to this guy. I'm like, "You got any good jokes?" Because I love jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Jokes are pre-planned arrangements of words that end in laughter, right? He's like, "Yeah, I got one, but I don't think it's the right time." Because it was just, everyone was settling in and integrating, and I was ready to hear some jokes.
It's funny. I think that comes across in a lot of communication of the right thing. You could say the right thing at the wrong time and just be immediately a weirdo, or immediately just like, okay, that was not it. And it's interesting, right? To your point of, communication and speaking, it's not only how you speak and what you speak, but when you speak it, that's absolutely essential. We were talking about your sales process and if you could wave a magic wand and have the life that you want to have, or what would be different about your life or your business. If you were to instead ask, as soon as someone gets on a call, before you know who they are, where they're from, why they got on the call, what they actually want, if you just immediately started asking them about their problems.
Yeah.
It's like, how much money do you have? How much debt do you have? Whatever it is, like
right.
Asking super intense questions, it'd probably be very abrasive. It would be very intense and maybe disruptive to the relationship, where they go, who the heck is this guy? I don't want to deal with him. But you almost have that foreplay. You set the scene, you set the environment, you build the relationship so you can actually go there. Same thing to Australians and their social activities, right? It's the Australian that just immediately, like, let's say you were to make Australian roasts and jokes in America to a stranger you don't know, you'd probably be conceived as an asshole. You'd probably be conceived as a guy that nobody wants to talk to. It's extremely disruptive. Who the heck is this guy? Versus you're in Australia, you know the guy pretty well. You've actually built somewhat of a relationship. The context and timing allows you to go crazy. It's just interesting, right? It's the timing as much as it is the whatever you say. Majeed, I'm curious. Clearly, you have just a depth of knowledge and understanding and expertise and curiosity for language when it comes to a professional environment of sales and marketing, and also in a personal environment of relationships and leadership. I love the way you've distinguished those two. What brought you into this world? What do you remember a key moment in your childhood or when you're growing up that brought you into, I want to learn more about speaking and I really want to master this skill?
It was the theater. As a kid, I was in these plays just because, I don't know, my parents signed me up for it, right? And they were musicals. And so we would like wear costume and have a script and put on makeup and go into the theater and put on our performance. And I loved that. And Shakespeare says all the world's a play and the men and women merely players in it. And you can just play all the time. You can always be performing. And I probably got a lot of validation from making people laugh and, capturing people's imagination. And so I loved it. I was good at it. And now I can see how it applies to business and sales and how important. My mentor once told me that your number one sales tool is your customer's imagination. You activate their imagination with words.
That's potent.
I want to go back to, there's two ideas that came up for me. One was the biggest sales day I ever had on stage was because I made a few jokes about the host at the beginning. So there's a guy called Sachin Patel. He's got about 200,000 functional medicine doctors that will do whatever he tells them to do because he's amazing. And he was hosting this seminar event. There was 150 functional medicine doctors in the audience. And nobody knew me. And I wanted to demonstrate how close me and Sachin are by cracking a few jokes at his expense without lowering his status. Okay, so the way I did this, he introduced me, which was great. He was like, guys, Majeed's the best speaker in the world. Take notes. He's amazing. So that indicates to them that we know each other and he trusts me. So then I come on stage and I say, guys, how about this Sachin guy? Isn't he wonderful? And then I put a picture of his face and I emailed his team the night before. I said, can you send me the most high resolution picture of Sachin's face? Because there's something I want to do. And I take his face and his mustache has this like little pencil thin mustache that he must really painstakingly carve daily, right? It's really well kept. His first job was as a barber.
Okay.
Indian guy, Sachin. Okay, so he's got this pencil thin. And so I take the slide and I zoom in uncomfortably close. Like the whole slide, the big PowerPoint is like this close on his face. And I said, guys, if you're like me, then the first time you met Sachin, you probably said what I said, which is, click to the slide, dude, that is an amazing beard. And everyone's like, it's true. He's got a very good, amazing beard. You know, there's a little bit of a laugh. And then I go, I've been wondering, how does he do it? And the only thing I can think of is he's got to have lasers. Cut to the next slide. There's a picture of a guy cutting his beard with like lasers and a razor blade. And, you know, I can just picture him in the morning calling out to his wife, Deepa. So I use his wife's name, Deepa. And, you know, he's drinking his mushroom coffee, which is like an inside joke. Everyone knows he likes his mushroom coffee. So now I'm indicating to the tribe, I know he likes his mushroom coffee. I'm joking about how he's shaving his beard. And then I make this, you try to make fun of his voice a little bit. And I say, Deepa, bring me my beard razor, laser beam, beard laser beam, razor, whatever it is. And so everyone's laughing.
Right.
Okay, this is the first 30 seconds of the talk. It has nothing to do with beards or shaving or anything. And I'm just creating this humor to show I know a little bit about what our shared friend, Sachin. Mm-hmm. So that's a way that I used humor to accelerate my trust within the group so that they know I got the inside jokes with the mushroom coffee. I know this guy. I know him well enough that I can make fun of him on stage without insulting him. So he's laughing. Mm-hmm. He's laughing in the back. So that's just one way that I can use humor in my talks. And the second thing I wanted to share with you was a joke that I didn't tell at Andrew's wedding because I thought it crossed a line.
Oh, I'm excited to hear this. Context, 2 days ago, Majeed and I attended the wedding of a shared friend, an amazing guy named Andrew Watkins. And it was a beautiful, beautiful wedding. And Majeed Mogharreban had the honor of emceeing this wedding. Let's hear the joke.
So this is the second wedding MC that I've had in the last 4 weeks. You were at the other one in Paris. And what I was doing in Paris was I was looking for jokes that I can tell that are observational about the wedding, that everyone at the wedding would understand and laugh at, that pokes a little bit of fun without insulting them. So at Maria and Brandon's wedding, I said, I met all of Maria's friends. They seem to be all very wealthy and doing very well. Congratulations. You're all very rich. That's not insulting anybody, but we all laughed, right? And, you know, we had this candle that was burning too long and the wax was dripping on our fingers. So I was mentioning like, who came up with the candle idea? You know, kind of reference that. So we were at Andrew and Leola's wedding 2 days ago or 3 days ago. And she tells the story of how they met. They met at a sex party that she was hosting, or an intimacy party, right? And they talked about how Andrew met Leola, and Leola thought Andrew didn't like him very much. And Leola was kind of jealous that he was kind of playing with the other women at the party and not really as much with her. So the joke came to my mind. And the joke was, I heard that the only reason Leola is marrying Andrew is because she was jealous of the other girls at the party and she doesn't want any of them to have him. So he's all to hers. Nobody else can have him. And to me, it was funny in my head. But as I imagined saying it, it's not really uplifting to Leola or Andrew.
Right.
It's not even true.
Right.
Right. And so I tested that in my head. I go, that one didn't work. So I didn't tell it. And then as I was eating, I was like, I should make a joke about like, we're not supposed to put the food. We're only supposed to put the food in our body through our mouth and no one else, ladies and gentlemen. And I did. That one I kind of edited out because I was like, do I need to make a sex joke about the food? I don't know. Should I? But I ended up pulling it out later. At one point, I said, we need to make a few housekeeping announcements. I've seen some of you, just so you know, the sex party has not started yet. And please keep the food just for eating, nothing else. Thank you very much. So I'm just kind of like playing with their theme of sex party. They talked about making people uncomfortable and everything. So, right. So I'm bringing the event together as an MC. And I'm playing with the edge of inappropriateness and discomfort hopefully without going too far.
Right. And it's funny because the same thing with the jokes about wealth at the wedding in Paris. We're at this private chateau. It's a very extravagant wedding. And so you're almost taking the common themes or the underlying roots of whatever the event is, and you're pulling at them. You're pulling at the strings that are tying things together. So Andrew and Leola's sex party, sex jokes. Maria and Brandon's, it's a very wealthy environment. We're going to make money jokes. And so we're going to almost play the jokes based on the environment we're in.
Yeah, and Brandon's a financial advisor, and Maria is apparently wealthy, and so are all of her friends. And so I make a joke like, no wonder she's marrying a financial advisor.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's great stuff. Really, really, really insightful on how you're kind of thinking about things and editing out your own jokes. I'm happy you didn't share that joke at Andrew and Leola's wedding. I think that was, very observational of you. Really fascinating stuff. So I am curious, Majeed, just kind of looking into the future. So you come from an acting background, you become a professional speaker of your own accord. I think I would love to just hear a quick rep sheet of how many speeches did you do? Did you ever think you'd be a speaking coach? Kind of what was that transition from acting to speaking to coaching?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to travel the world, and I had heard about motivational speakers who go on speaking circuits. And a speaking circuit is like a series of cities that they'll speak in Chicago one night and New York the next night. And so that sounded cool. Travel, performance. And I joined the Professional Speaker Association to understand, how do you make money doing this? And I understood there's keynote speakers that are getting paid to give talks. What I found was that's very competitive. There's a lot of people who want to get paid to give talks. The sales cycle is quite long. Sometimes you're 6, 9, 12 months out negotiating a keynote speech and a fee that's in a conference that's happening in a year.
Wow.
But then I found out that the most successful, most highly paid speakers aren't actually focused on getting keynote fees. They're focused on using the stage to sell something else, whether that's their consulting, their courses, their books. So I thought, okay, if I publish a book and I get everybody in the audience to buy a $20 book, there's 200 people in the audience. That's $4,000. That's a nice payday for a speech, right? Then I found out I can speak to 100 people and 10 of them could buy a $10,000 consulting arrangement with me, or a $5,000 online course, or a coaching program. And so I became one of the highest paid professional speakers in Canada. And I know this because we have an annual meeting called the High Income Earners Meeting of people over 350,000. And we all talk about how much money we made and how we made it, just to share. And 100% of those people in that room don't make a majority of their income from selling speeches, like getting paid to speak, but they make all of their income from speaking as the top of funnel marketing and positioning to lead people to buy product and services. So what I do now, I think it was 2019, I started coaching people. And I put up one post on social media on Facebook, said, if I showed you how to get speaking engagements and generate income from speaking, would you be interested? I got a bunch of people saying, show me, yes, yes, yes. So I put on a webinar, and at the end of the webinar, I said, if you want to work with me, it'll be $3,000. Book a call. I got 8 people signing up, and I made a lot of money real fast, right? And then at the end of that, I had a 3-day event, and I said, if you want to work with me for a year, it's another $15,000. And I had 4 people sign up after that.
Wow.
So I go, whoa, that's $60,000 and $24,000. And then I did the same thing again the next month. So I found that coaching, especially in a format of service delivery that is leveraged, which in other words for me is a group coaching program, is an accelerated way to apply the wisdom and knowledge that I've earned into someone else's situation. And the highest value application is when I could take a business owner and apply storytelling, personal branding, and public speaking to help them accelerate their results. And I used to work with the $100,000 business owner, and then I started working with the $1 million business owner. And what's next for me is working with the $10 million business owner, because the same application of skills, when applied to those higher value businesses, creates more value and justifies higher fees.
Yeah, it's an asymmetrical return. Yeah, that's great. That's really interesting stuff. So I I have a question that is just really pressing on the top of my mind, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here. But I'm just curious, obviously you got into this world, like you were speaking and acting before social media and brain rot on TikTok. And then you started coaching in 2019 coaching in 2019. And then obviously TikTok comes out and you go from 0 to 300,000 followers on TikTok. And I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. So relatively overnight. I'm curious how you've seen communication and speaking change as the content people consume gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and what you're looking in the future of how to shift both the way you communicate, the way that you're teaching your clients, and just overall in the marketplace, how we're communicating and how it's shifting.
What I see is a shortening of attention span. I know from my own mind, it's challenging for me to sit still for anything longer than 5 minutes. And TikTok came out, and it was the drinking from a fire hose platform of short videos, right? I had never seen anything like it before. It used to be whatever you go to look at online, whether it's Netflix or YouTube, you have to decide what you want to watch. TikTok was the first platform that said, don't worry about deciding what you want to watch. We'll just show you stuff, right? And there's a term called captive audience, which refers to you're on a stage and they're in a theater and they can't exactly stand up and walk out. I mean, they can, but it's kind of a big deal, right?
Right.
That's a captive audience. Online, the audience is not captive. They're one swipe away from something else. So you have to get their attention immediately. Keep their attention over and over, reselling them on the idea of continuing to watch this, which I call being entertaining. So when you're speaking, you cannot be boring, not even for 30 seconds. If you're boring for 30 seconds and you're speaking to someone who's online, whether it's a live stream or watching your video, boring, they're gone. So we have to be engaging. And as you know from Instagram videos, marketing, the first second has to hook. If the video is amazing starting at second number 10, nobody's ever going to know. Because they're going to be gone. So we have to think about stopping the scroll and keeping them engaged a lot more than we used to. We used to think, I've got an hour. I could take 15 minutes warming up with my backstory before I get to anything useful. So I think that's how it's changed. We have to assume people's attention span has lowered, and we have to take on the responsibility of being entertaining. If we have wisdom to share, we need to master how to deliver it in an entertaining way.
There's a formula we use in my business called the CKC formula. And it's, how are we capturing attention? First 3 seconds, whether it's visual, audible, it's something that's incongruent or something that's atypical. So how do we capture attention, keep attention, convert attention? And so then we always know it's like, okay, so CKC on the front end, short format piece of content or the paid ad or whatever we're doing, initial awareness. And then what are we converting them to that's deeper awareness? And so now we're going to go from, let's say, a 15-second clip or a still ad into a longer format piece of content, let's say a 10-minute YouTube video or a 45-minute podcast or a 90-minute webinar. Okay, and then what are we doing CKC within that? And then what are we doing to bring them into whatever product marketing or product or service that we're offering on the back end?
CKC, capture, keep,
convert. Capture, keep, convert. So the CKC formula is kind of just like the mechanism or the formula we've used to continue to just anchor that in all of our content and marketing process. I am curious, just to wrap up on this, how do you continually add more hooks and keep someone re-engaged and reinvested into a piece of content?
So questions. When I'm with a live audience, I'll go, you guys loving this so far? Isn't this cool? Are you guys getting value? If this is valuable for you, type value in the chat right now. So bringing people into the chat or bringing people to the comments, I don't know about you, but when I'm watching a video, I'm also kind of looking at the comments. So understanding that the way people experience your content might also include the comments and description while your video is going. Questions. Questions bring people, wouldn't that be cool? Isn't this amazing? How do you feel about that? Wouldn't that be awesome? Brings people's mind back to the message. And then you can start with a little bit of a foreshadow. So I'm going to tell you the story about the time that I almost didn't make it when I was swimming in the ocean. But first, let me tell you this. So that's the open loop.
Yeah,
right?
You've created this curiosity. Now I want to know about it.
Yeah. And in fact, it's a great way to start stories. You know, you can start the story and say, wow, I just had a wild interaction at the hardware store. And then it's like, well, now I got to know what happened. Like, tell me what happened, you know? And so, and then finally is giving people something to see, like use the word imagine. And it's like opening up a video for them. Imagine you're walking down the aisle at the store. You're in the grocery store looking at fruits and vegetables. Now they're playing a video. They see it.
Right. So you'll have questions pointed to engage someone. You've got the visualization, imagine this thing. You've got the open loops, so just creating or framing a story. And then you've also got statements like, I just had this wild experience, or you'll never believe what I just did before you go into it.
And lists are great too. 5 secrets to winning with online marketing. Then if we like number 1, then we're going to probably like 2, 3, 4, and 5. And often lists are done in reverse order, like the top 5 best, starting with number 5. And if you like number 5, 4 is going to be better. 3 is going to be even better than that.
Right. So you almost want to build on your content. This is amazing. Before we go ahead and share with the audience exactly how they can get in touch with you and learn more about how they can improve their public speaking, is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of just practical tips and trips someone could use right now in this moment to see a dramatic shift in the way they're communicating?
Well, I think if you believe that you are the one controlling the words that you use, then you can say, I can be conscious about choosing words that have the right frequency and vibration that I want associated to my message, and use word selection as a mindfulness practice. Instead of believing that words just come out as you react and as you think and as you talk, take control and say, I'm choosing my words and I'm choosing them with love and the energy I want to be sharing.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And then your speaking becomes meditation. It becomes something you're consciously selecting. Majeed, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you sharing your gifts and your expertise and your stories and jokes with all of us watching and listening. Majeed, what's one way someone can find you on the internet, on social media, and another way someone can actually deepen their learning and get to learn more from you on how they can speak?
I'm Expert Speaker on TikTok. I'm Majeed Mogharreban on Instagram. Expertspeaker.com is my website. Expertspeakerbook.com will get you a free copy of my book, which outlines the 5 steps you need to take to grow your business with public speaking.
Amazing. Would you, for those listening, would you rather they come find you on Instagram, TikTok? What's the best platform?
Instagram's nice because you can message me there. And if there's anything I can do to support you, I'll help you, especially if you have an upcoming talk and you want to strategize about the messaging and the storytelling, just send me a message on Instagram.
Amazing. So you can see Majeed Mogharreban spelled out right here for Instagram. Also, that's spelled Majeed. Mogharreban is Mogharreban.
Wow.
Look at us go.
He did it.
Look at us go. So Majeed Mogharreban on Instagram, and then expertspeakerbook.com if someone would like to actually download your book, get a free copy of it, and learn more about how they can be a better speaker.
You got it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Last little flex. I shared your book, the Expert Speaker book, with my mom. My mom's an entrepreneur and working on herself, and she was absolutely obsessed with it, absolutely highlighted the heck out of it, and was texting and calling me the whole time she read it.
Wow.
So practical, not only for me, but my family.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing your gifts with the world. Again, follow him on Instagram, Majeed Mogharreban. Go download his book at expertspeakerbook.com. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Harrison.
All right. Make sure to like, subscribe, give me a follow here on Instagram, send me a DM on Instagram. And if you have any ideas on who I should interview next on the podcast, go ahead and send me a DM with their name on Instagram. Stay tuned. Thank you again for listening to the BackTracks Podcast, and we will be back soon.